Welcome back to the 2 Minute Warning. Today I'm taking a look at the Cincinnati Bengals and going over the best and worst case scenario for them in the 2021 NFL season. But before we get on the topic, question for those of you, and I just want to hear from you guys. Where do you think the Bengals will finish up? You think they'll get a wild card spot, a playoff win, miss the playoffs, a top 10 draft pick, top 5 draft pick, wherever you got them finishing? Comment down below and you'll kind of hear my answer throughout. Getting straight into it though, best case scenario, I'm not talking about, Lamar Jackson breaks his leg or something like that, but just best case scenario for the team that is within a realistic hopefulness, whatever you want to call it. Realistically, best case scenario for the Bengals, in my opinion, is an above 500 season, a playoff berth, somewhere around 10-7 record seems like the best possible spot for them. I know that doesn't sound like the highest ceiling ever. A lot of people want their best case scenario to be a Super Bowl. I just don't think the Bengals are ready yet. I think they have a lot of young talent, and I think that's what's going to be holding them back, just the lack of chemistry and experience. They're not ready to go all the way yet. I love Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, Auden Tate, Joe Mixon. Offensive line is going to be a little bit better. But I just feel like it's really inexperienced to give them Super Bowl aspirations. Again, I'm not saying this team is impossible for them to make the playoffs, but best case scenario to me is to make the playoffs. I don't see them making a Super Bowl run. Again, a lot of people would want their team's best case scenario to be a Super Bowl run, but there's plenty of other teams that are worse than the Bengals, like the Lions, the Texans, the Eagles. No one's going to bet on them to make the Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen. And I see the same thing with the Bengals. Not to that extreme, but I just don't see them getting there this year. Again, 10-7 after having the 5th worst record in the NFL. That's a pretty big improvement in my opinion. I think they should be pretty thankful for that. We're pretty happy with that. At least anything above 500 I think is a huge accomplishment for this Bengals roster this year. I think, again, that's best case scenario. Defense steps up. Jamar Chase pans out. Joe Burrow's perfectly fine after his injury. He's performing just like he was. Trey Hendrickson's getting plus 10 sacks again. Sam Hubbard's helping him out. Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Trey Waynes, Mike Hilton. They're, creating a pretty strong secondary. This is all the best case scenario for the Bengals. And, that could be +1, -1 on my 10-7 prediction, 11-6, 9-8. That's the best case scenario for the Bengals, in my opinion. But we'll just have to see if it turns out, if everyone's healthy, if everyone pans out, if everyone's projected to be what they're projected to be. Just given the tough schedule, being in the AFC North, second toughest division, facing the NFC North, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Lions, facing the AFC West, Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, their 17th game being the Niners. There's a lot of tough games to really worry about, and therefore I just don't see them winning a Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean they can't make some big improvements and possibly make a playoff run again. 10-7, ±1 is the best case scenario for the Bengals, in my opinion. Worst case scenario, unfortunately, I do think the Bengals have a really low floor. I could see them getting anywhere from 3 to 5 wins. Again, this is worst case scenario, not the most likely case scenario. Worst case scenario. Zach Taylor doesn't pan out. Jamar Chase is a bust. Someone gets hurt on defense. Joe Burrow's still a little bit rusty after injury, And of course, if there's a major injury, if Joe Burrow goes down again, I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying a realistic worst case scenario, assuming everyone's healthy, but you might have an occasional player that gets banged up like every other season. Someone has someone that gets hurt or banged up here and there, so that's normal to predict in worst case scenarios. But I'm saying worst case scenario of a Joe Burrow tearing his ACL, I'm not predicting that. But in the worst case scenario of Joe Burrow being rusty, Joe Mixon continuing to be inconsistent of being on and off the field, Jamar Chase not panning out, not being worth the number 5 overall pick, offensive line still needing work, Zach Taylor still not being the guy, defense not clicking. These are all bad things that would cause them to have 3 to 5 wins. Of course, I'm not necessarily predicting that. That wouldn't be my strong prediction, but I'm just saying that is the worst case scenario. So it's a pretty big gap, Going from 3 wins is your worst to 10 to 11 wins is your best. It's a pretty big gap. Clearly, this isn't a team that's, really set on being a pinpoint record this year. I think it's very variable-like for the Bengals this year. There's just so much youth to this team as far as their firepower goes. Like I said, Joe Burrow, only year 2. Tyler Boyd, he's still on his rookie contract. T. Higgins, only going to be a sophomore. Jamar Chase, only going to be a rookie. Auden Tate, still relatively young, pretty young. It's a young team when it comes to your top-tier firepower. Defense, it's not the youngest compared to the offensive weapons, but still a relatively young team that's inexperienced as far as postseason experience goes for them. This team is a unit. There's been guys that have been to the postseason before, but you guys know what I mean. As a total unit, this team just lacks experience in the postseason and just together, and therefore I don't have their ceiling being a Super Bowl. I do have their floor being pretty low, but like I said, there's just a lot of question marks around this team I'm not certain about. I'm excited to see where they end up. I don't expect them to be ending up either or. I expect them to be somewhere in the middle, to be honest. We'll just have to see if I'm right. Again, the tough schedule's really throwing me off for this Bengals team. Ravens, Browns, a lot of people still riding off the Steelers. I don't think they're going to go 11-0 again, but I still think they have a top 5 defense that any offense is going to, struggle with. Again, the NFC North, Aaron Rodgers is back. Minnesota Vikings are on the come up. Bears have a top 10 defense. AFC West, we know how good the Chiefs are. Justin Herbert and the Chargers are on the come up. Raiders, Broncos, decent teams. Broncos got a great defense as well. Niners, 17th game. It's a tough schedule, therefore it's very variable for my predictions for best and worst case scenario. You guys tell me, do you agree or disagree? I know about 99% of you are going to think I'm stupid for saying they're not going to win the Super Bowl. We'll see who's right at the end. I can promise you the Bengals are not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but if you still want to follow that fake illusion, go ahead. In worst case scenario, those same people are still going to say we're going to have way more than 3 wins. Again, I'm not predicting them to get 3 wins. I'm just saying the worst possible outcome will probably result in them getting 3 wins. I'm sure there's still going to be people who don't listen to that part. You guys tell me though, do you agree or disagree? As always, and of course, leave down your opinions or comments or takes. I'm willing to change my mind. I'm open-minded to going one way or the other. And referring back to the question asked in the beginning video, let me know where you have the Bengals finishing up this year. Playoff berth, miss the playoffs, top 10 pick, top 5 pick, wherever it is, comment down below. As always, and of course, thank you for watching, guys. 2 in the morning.